essay entitled A Pentagram for Conjuring the Narrative by the late great filmmaker Hollis Frampton. The first point on this star is the story a friend told him of a dream he had. In this dream, the friend is a wealthy heiress whose father has had her entire life filmed from the day of her birth. The filming continues throughout her life until she's very old. On her deathbed, she requests that her entire estate be given to the first person born after she dies who will watch the entire movie of her life. She dies, and the dreamer is born a boy in front of a projection of the heiress's birth. From then on, he's propped up in front of a screen and spends the rest of his life watching the rich, full life of the heiress unfold in front of him. His health eventually begins to fail because he lives on nothing but buttered popcorn and never gets any exercise. Ultimately, he's kept alive on life support machines and drugs until the film ends with the death of the heiress and he himself is allowed to die, at which point the dreamer awakes. This story is an invitation to reflect on the problems that spring into existence when we begin making and watching movies. But for our purposes here, I want to concentrate on one that's not necessarily latent to the process, but rather produced, sometimes thoughtlessly, other times quite by design, and that is you, the passive viewer. In the first theatrical presentations of films, audience members would duck flying objects or run out of the theater to avoid being hit by a train. A far cry from today's sophisticated viewers, who are so detached they can sit quite comfortably in front of 120 minutes of non-stop explosions, car crashes, automatic gunfire, screaming and exploding heads without so much as a token acceleration in heart rate. In an attempt to overcome this detachment and re-engage the audience, artists have gone to a lot of trouble to make their screen work more interactive. They've spread it out in the room on multiple surfaces, added live cameras, buttons to push, and sensors to trigger. But as I see it, today's viewer isn't passive as a result of a lack of physical activity to engage in while viewing, but rather as the result of a mental paralysis brought on by a basic contradiction in our understanding of what it is we're doing when we view a movie. In this case, for example, on the one hand, you know what you're experiencing is patterns of light moving on a flat screen and buzzing sounds produced by a paper cone. But it's difficult not to see and hear it as me talking to you. On the other hand, even though it is me talking to you, your knowledge that I'm the product of a screen and speakers makes me unreal to you and prohibits you from believing that any interaction between us is truly possible. It's this contradiction that makes it difficult, if not impossible, for you to engage with either me or the hardware, leaving you with no other role but that of passive spectator. It won't be easy, but let's see if we can't find a way to break through years of conditioning and re-establish you as an active participant. The first thing required will be your willingness to try. Despite your convictions to the contrary, you must proceed as though interaction is possible here and actively do your part. You'll take out of this exactly what you put in. If you do nothing, nothing will happen. Next, you know that I was probably recorded at some other place and definitely at some other time. In fact, you probably wouldn't be surprised to see me watching this right alongside you. Such a gulf in space and time can be overcome by nothing short of magic. I'm going to do my part, and I hope you'll do yours. I have before me an ordinary deck of cards. I'm going to go through them real quickly and find the Ace of Spades because it's an easy card to remember. Just think of the Motorhead song of the same name. I'm going to shuffle that into the deck now. It doesn't matter how well I shuffle because you are going to tell us where to find the card. To begin with, I want you to think of a number between 1 and 20. Any number between 1 and 20. If you have trouble with arithmetic, pick an easy number. Now to that number, add the next number higher than it. So for example, if you picked 3, add 4 to 3. If you picked 15, add 16 to 15. Now take your time, there's no rush. Okay? Now, to that sum, add the number 9. Okay? Next, divide that new number by 2. Got it? Now subtract from that number your original number. okay? Now you don't have to suffer the embarrassment of saying your number out loud. What I'm going to do is I'm going to count down into the deck, and when I get to your number, that's where we'll find our card. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.